Have you ever been there, sitting on the couch, maybe really upset after a terrible day or even properly crying,
Hmm.
and then your cat suddenly decides your lap is the place to be, or your dog just rests its head on your knee?
Yeah, that classic comfort move. We just accept it, don't we?
Yeah,
Like, they know.
exactly. But that's the big question we're diving into today. Do they really know we're stressed or sad? Or is that, well, just us wishing they did?
Is it real emotional intelligence, or are we just anthropomorphizing,
Right.
projecting our own feelings onto them?
That's what we want to figure out. We're digging into the science here, studies, looking at everything from chemical signals they might smell
Yeah.
to research where they actually made people genuinely sad, not just acting to see how the pets reacted. It's fascinating stuff.
Our mission today is to unpack their toolkit. How do they do it?
Hmm.
Sniffing hormones, reading tiny facial cues, and is the comfort they offer true empathy like we understand it?
Or is it maybe something more complex, more adaptive, a kind of social smarts that helps them navigate our world? Let's kick off with cats. They have this whole mystique, right? Aloof, independent.
Yet so many owners will tell you absolutely their cat knows when they're down. And, the science actually supports that. Cats are pretty sophisticated emotional detectors.
So it's not just one thing they pick up on, it's multiple signals.
Totally. They're using several senses. First off, visual recognition. There was a study back in 2015 showing cats can tell the difference between human happy faces and angry faces.
Okay, so if they can spot angry, they can probably spot sad too, like crying or frowning.
That's the implication, yeah.
Yeah.
They're definitely watching us. And listening, too. Vocal perception is huge for them.
The tone of voice.
Exactly. They're super sensitive to shifts in pitch, volume, just the general sound. A sad voice often gets quieter, maybe flatter. Cats pick up on that change immediately. It signals something's different.
And it's not just sounds or faces, it's our actions too.
Definitely. Behavioral changes. Think about it if you're usually rushing around and suddenly you're just lying in bed for hours or moving really slowly.
They notice the routine is broken.
Precisely. They're masters of observation. They key into predictability. So when they sense that shift, that sadness, what do?
Well, mine usually gets closer. Maybe some headbutting, rubbing against my legs.
Right, increased physical contact. And the purr, of course. But the purr is interesting, isn't it? It's a bit of a paradox.
Yeah, because we think purring means happy cat.
We do, but actually, research shows they also purr when they're stressed or even in pain. Seems to be a kind of self-soothing mechanism for them.
But it helps us too. I remember reading something about the frequency.
You got it. The frequency of a cat's purr, usually between 25 and 150 hertz. That specific range is known to help with things like wound healing and reducing inflammation. It might even promote bone density.
Wow. So the cat purrs to maybe make itself feel better, but it actually has a physical benefit for us just by being near.
Kind of a happy accident of
Yeah.
physics, yeah. Which brings us to this idea of emotional contagion. Are we saying the cat sort of catches our mood rather than understanding why we're sad?
That's a good way to think about it. Because they form these strong bonds, studies suggest they can mirror our emotional state if you're subdued and low energy.
The cat becomes subdued too.
Yeah, they might get quiet, seek closeness, maybe trying to stabilize things. They don't get, oh, you had a fight with your boss, but they definitely get, my human's energy is low, things feel off, maybe proximity will help.
It's like a feedback loop. Calming the human helps calm their environment, which benefits the cat too. It's adaptive.
Okay, so that's the subtle cat. Now let's shift to dogs, our often more obviously expressive pals.
Right, dogs use visual cues, tail wags, posture, and sounds like barks and whines. But their superpower, it's their nose, olfaction.
They're like little chemists, aren't they? Detecting things we can't even imagine smelling.
Absolutely. When we feel stressed or scared, our bodies release specific hormones like cortisol and maybe even pheromones in our sweat or breath. Dogs can smell those changes instantly.
And that's how they can be trained for medical alerts, right? Detecting seizures or blood sugar drops.
Exactly. Their sense of smell is so incredibly sensitive, they can pick up on tiny chemical changes that signal something's about to happen internally in a human. It's amazing.
It really is. Okay, so they have this incredible detection ability. But what about their own emotional range? We love attributing complex feelings to them, like guilt.
Ah, yes, the famous guilty look.
Right.
We need to unpack that scientifically. Dogs do have the same basic brain structures and hormones like oxytocin that drive the emotions in us. They definitely feel joy, fear, anger, disgust, love. Basic, powerful emotions.
But the more complex ones, Like feeling ashamed they chewed the shoe.
The scientific consensus is that their emotional level is roughly comparable to a human toddler,
Right.
maybe around 2 to 2.5 years old.
Yeah.
So no, they don't experience complex social emotions like guilt, pride, or shame.
So when they give that look, ears back, avoiding eye contact.
That's fear of punishment. They've learned to associate the chewed shoe, or whatever the evidence is, plus your angry posture and tone, with a negative consequence. It's not remorse, it's anticipation of trouble.
Okay, I might owe my dog an apology then. I always fell for that look.
It's easy to do. We project.
Eh.
Which leads perfectly into the next big question. What about sympathy? Do they truly feel for us? There was this key study.
The one where the owners experienced real sadness, not just acting. What happened there?
Right. This is crucial. They induced genuine sadness using video clips. And the results really challenged the simple, comforting companion idea. When owners were genuinely sad, yes, the dog stayed physically closer.
Okay, that fits the narrative.
But, and this is a big but, other behaviors didn't align with comforting. They actually gazed at their owners less and jumped up on them less.
Less interaction. That seems odd if they're trying to console you.
Exactly. And here's the really interesting part. Their obedience dropped. When owners gave a simple command like sit to dogs were significantly less likely to comply when the owner was sad.
Wait, so they were less obedient when the human was vulnerable?
That's what the data showed. The researchers proposed a couple of interpretations. Neither points to pure empathy. One possibility is avoidance. The dog senses distress and sort of disengages slightly.
Wait, self-preservation maybe?
Or the other possibility, perhaps they're even taking advantage of the situation, perceiving the owner as distracted or low energy and thinking, maybe the rules are relaxed right now.
Wow. That really turns the whole selfless comfort thing on its head. So they detect the sadness, but the reaction is more about managing their own situation.
It seems that way. It looks more like an adaptive strategy. How do I navigate this change in my human? Rather than a purely empathetic, how can I make them feel better? Like a human might react.
That's a huge shift in how we might think about it. But even if it's not pure empathy, their presence does help us, right? Especially with stress. Let's talk about that study with kids.
Yes, the Trier-Social Stress Test for Children, the TSSTC, a pretty standard, quite stressful lab test for kids aged 7 to 12. They had to do things like give an impromptu speech.
Okay, yeah, stressful.
And they did it under 3 conditions, either alone, with a parent present, or with their pet dog present. They measured stress in 2 ways, how the kids felt and their physiological response.
Let's start with how they felt the perceived stress. What did having the dog there do?
This was a really significant finding. Having the pet dog present significantly buffered the rise in perceived stress. The kids felt less stressed with their dog.
Okay, that makes sense. But compared to the parent?
Here's the kicker. The dog was a better buffer for perceived stress than the parent was.
Whoa. Better than mom or dad. Why?
The leading theory is about non-evaluative companionship. Think about it. You're doing a stressful task where you feel judged, like public speaking. Even a loving parent is still another human who might consciously or unconsciously be evaluating you.
But the dog.
The dog is just there,
Yeah.
providing comfort and presence without any judgment or expectation. That lack of evaluation seems incredibly powerful in that specific kind of social stress situation.
That's a fantastic practical takeaway. But what about the body's reaction? The physiological stress, like cortisol levels. Was the dog a buffer there too?
That's where it got more complicated. Overall, just having the dog in the room didn't automatically lower cortisol across the board. There wasn't a simple main effect, like with perceived stress.
Okay. So did anything specific make a difference physiologically?
Yes, the interaction mattered a lot. Lower cortisol levels were linked to 2 things. First, more child-initiated petting.
Makes sense. Petting releases oxytocin, lowers stress hormones.
Exactly. Physical touch initiated by the child was clearly beneficial. But the second finding was kind of counterintuitive.
What was that?
Lower cortisol was also associated with less dog proximity-seeking behavior. So if the dog was constantly trying to get close, nudging the child, or seeming anxious itself.
That might actually add to the child's stress, like now I have to manage the dog too.
Precisely. It suggests the dog isn't just a passive furry stress ball. Its behavior matters. A calm, available dog the child could choose to interact with was helpful. A needy or obviously stressed dog might have added a cognitive load.
So the quality of the interaction is key for the physiological benefit, which brings us back to how well do we actually read our pets' signals if we misinterpret them?
We might not be helping as much as we think. And this is where human bias really messes things up, the anthropomorphism trap.
We see what we expect to see or what we want to see rather than what's actually there.
Exactly. There was this great ASU study by Molinaro and Wynn that showed this so clearly. They called it context bias.
Tell us about that one. It sounds revealing.
They showed people short videos of dogs. Sometimes the dog was shown near something typically happy, like a leash. Other times near something scary, like a vacuum cleaner.
Okay.
The key thing was, in some pairs of videos, the dog's actual body language was identical. Completely neutral, maybe just standing there. But people rated the dog's emotion based almost entirely on the context.
So, if they saw the leash, they said the dog looked happy or excited even if it was just standing still. And near the vacuum, they assumed it was anxious.
You got it. We rely so heavily on the surroundings, on our assumptions about the situation, rather than carefully observing the animal itself. We fill in the blanks with our own stories.
So the takeaway is we need to get much better at actually watching our specific pet, learning their language.
Absolutely. We need to move beyond assuming and start observing. For dogs, look for those concrete calming signals. The yawning when not tired, the lip licking, turning the head away. Those often mean mild stress, not relaxation.
And cats are even more subtle.
Very subtle. Ear position is huge. Flat ears usually signal fear. Tail flicks can mean irritation. But things like a slow blink, that's a major sign of trust and affection in cat language. Understanding these signals, specific to the species and the individual animal, is crucial.
It sounds like acknowledging our own bias is the first step to actually building a stronger, more accurate bond, really seeing them.
It really is.
Okay, so let's wrap this deep dive up. We've seen both cats and dogs are incredibly skilled at detecting our emotional states using smell, hearing, sight. It's quite a sensory package.
Definitely. And we saw that dogs, in particular, can be amazing buffers for perceived stress, even outperforming parents in a lab setting, likely due to that non-evaluative presence.
But, crucially, we shouldn't mistake their responses for human-like empathy or guilt. It seems to be a much more complex, adaptive form of social intelligence. They're constantly monitoring us.
Monitoring our genuine state. That's a key point from the studies. They react most strongly to authentic emotion, not faked sadness.
Which leads us to our final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. If our pets are this incredibly tuned in to our real, authentic emotional state day in and day out, what lesson can we take from that? From their constant ability to sense and adapt to our genuine inner lives?
Maybe something about being more authentic ourselves. It's definitely food for thought next time you try to put on a brave face for your furry companion. They probably know anyway.
They probably do. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.